Anita, how's your mental health?
Questionable at all times. You know this.
Yeah, how's the mental health of your children?
Also a little bit tricky. Can I tell you my experience in trying to find therapists for myself and my kids, Mel?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is how it goes. You ask around your friends and your family for a referral for somebody who's nearby. You finally find somebody who sounds like they might work for your family. You give them a call and you find out that A, they're not accepting new patients, or B, they have a huge wait list. So you start over again and you ask people if they know anybody who would be a good therapist and a good fit. Finally, you find one, you go and you meet with them and you figure out that you don't actually like them that much. But it's been so much work to find somebody who you can go to in your area that you're kind of stuck with them. Well, do you have any ideas for how to get around this?
I do because guess what? I've actually had some therapists that I have found on my own, which involves what you're saying. Sometimes I remember one time I was like 3 hours in the bathtub on my phone looking
Yeah.
through websites. I was such a prune at the end. But I have also had the experience with working with BetterHelp. And it was like, I don't want to say too good to be true, but because it is true, but it's like amazing because I was matched with my therapist within 24 hours.
And you didn't have to go through all of that other ridiculous process of trying to find somebody. And here's the cool thing too, is if that person didn't work out for you, you can just switch and say, and it's not like you're committing to another years long search for somebody who you're going to jive with.
It's true. And I lucked out, or maybe just BetterHelp is really good at matching people together because I never had to change my therapist. I loved her. Perfect fit for me. And I know that some of our friends have used BetterHelp and they've had to change therapists, and boom, same day, you can change.
Easy peasy.
You can ghost your therapist. Get a new one.
I love this idea. BetterHelp is one of our sponsors. If you use our promo code trybetterhelp.com/WWDN, you get 10% off your first month. And we totally recommend it.
Yes, get some therapy. That's trybetterhelp.com/WWDN. Another disastrous week, Anita, but we're here on a Tuesday or something.
This is bad, Mel, because usually when one of us is having a disaster, the other one is functioning okay. But right now we're on the same disaster schedule.
Yeah.
This is not good.
But you know what? At least we got it out within a day. We didn't have to skip a week or 2 weeks or like 2 months.
I'm so sorry, you guys. We're just sorry, but we're in the soup right now. I'm in the soup. Mel's in the soup. It's a nice bisque. Is it a bisque? I don't know.
I don't know. But you know what? Do you want to hear a new term that I learned about yesterday? And I'm like,
sure.
Oh, the Sunday scaries.
Oh, tell me more.
It's where you have the dread for the week starting. Mm-hmm. But I think widows, we have the dread of the weekend. And we also have the dread of the week starting. So we just have the scaries.
All the time scaries. Oh, Mel, I feel like my life after Jason died, I've been building a Jenga tower. But the Jenga tower that I built is like where you've already slid the pieces out and it's all ready to topple. And I feel like I've been slowly taking the pieces from the top and slipping them under the tower so it becomes more and more stable with time. And this week I feel like somebody came and kicked the Jenga tower over. And I feel like I started from scratch and it's super hard. And I am having a really hard time not having, I would call it a trauma response where I don't feel like I feel safe. My kids aren't safe and I'm not saying like safe as in I'm going to harm myself or others or they're going to be harmed, but like psychologically safe. So I want to grab everybody and run away, but also I'm having a hard time being a parent. So it's hard to run away when you don't feel like you can deal with your kids also. So it's been a really struggle that way. And it's been just kind of one thing after another. And when you're in a vulnerable position, I don't know if this is the same for you, Mel, so you'll have to tell me if it is for you, but when you're feeling a little vulnerable, things that usually wouldn't throw you too far I take those and I add them to my I'm failing bucket, evidence that I'm doing a bad job or that I have not come as far as I have, and my head starts swirling with unhelpful thoughts, and I have a really hard time pulling out of those and laughing at the things that I normally would just laugh at. It's like that's more evidence that you're failing. That's more evidence that you're not doing a good job. That's more evidence that you're failing your kids and you're failing the people around you. And it's evidence that people are watching you and, thinking you're doing a bad job. Do you do that?
No, but I think we've established that you and I have different coping strategies in our heads. But I agree that your Jenga tower has been toppled. I've witnessed it this week, and it's not okay. It's not fair. Not that anything's fair, but it's like, come on, just give her a freaking break. Life, it's not cool. I would say that my head doesn't go to I'm failing, but remember, I also do not have to take care of anybody. Mm-hmm. And so my situation is opposite, where I feel insignificant. I feel like there's no point to me being here. And because I think a lot of that stems from growing up in and being a female in a very, very family-oriented place. I mean, and just culture in general is very family-oriented, and it's like, you were supposed to have hit these goals by this time. Well, guess what? I'm different. And guess what? Nothing that I did caused my life circumstances to be what they are. Like, I didn't go out and ruin my life. I didn't self-sabotage myself. I did everything that everybody told me to do as a little child, and still happened. So I'm just more in the like, universe, you're kicking my butt, man. Like, when is it gonna stop? Like, when? Like, I'm surrounded by insanity with with life situations, with other people, with people that maybe I am not able to kick out of my life, and with people who have chosen to exit my life in a strange way and in a hurtful way. And I just get in my head, like, because I'm pretty like, yeah, go Mel, let's do this. Like, I'm just here to have fun and help people, and that's kind of been my mantra for my whole life. And I just get so down sometimes that I'm just like, I'm not even important to anybody, like, which is fine. Obviously, I wasn't meant to like have 4 kids like you have, but it's kind of the opposite. So like, I feel a struggle, but I feel it in a different way. I don't think people are like judging me, or I don't feel in my head like I'm failing because I'm being judged, because I don't have the high stakes things you do, like children, where it's like people do judge parents, every parent ever. And they're like, you're doing it wrong. You're grieving wrong. You're being a widow wrong. I'm just like, I'm insignificant. I don't matter. Which, by the way, thank you to everybody who sent me messages last week after Anita called for some help, because that was so kind of you guys to help me to know that, like, what we do, both Anita and I do, makes a difference. Because, like we say, we're just 2 widows in our basements or in our rooms making some podcasts, and we don't get to see everybody, or we don't fully see the reach, or we don't fully know how we help people until you tell us. So thank you so much for those things. And I've been just trying to keep going. I've still exercised every single day, and I've not let that go. The thing that's driving me crazy is like, I'm doing everything that every expert says ever to do, and I have not let up on it. It doesn't make me feel better, except for today I feel kind of okay. But I'm also doing EMDR, and that's a whole shit show in itself, because it brings stuff out and it moves it around. And I'm having my own trauma situation with the person that was a total a-hole to me, and that was a good friend for a long time, and some betrayal stuff. So there's a lot. I'm dealing with a lot. So I know that I'm not okay for a reason, but I'm also tired of it. Like, I saw some stupid Instagram meme, okay, sorry, there's dogs in here. And it was like, once you make it through the storm, don't worry, you'll look back and you'll see why you had to hit rock bottom. And I'm like, okay, but what if you're at rock bottom for 5 years? what if you're at rock bottom for 7 years? I'm like, that's really awesome to read a little one-liner thing like that. But this is like trauma. This isn't like, oh, I'm sad I, had a little situation that didn't involve a dead spouse or a betrayal or addiction or suicide or all these huge, 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 huge things. It's like when you're just in it chronically, that's where it gets really wearing. So I'm just like, please, 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 I need a miracle just to at least have like for some time, a burden of anxiety lifted off of my head. And I'm doing everything I can. And sometimes I get it. And sometimes it's for 30 seconds. So yeah. I guess I'll take what I can get. But who's out there? Who feels me? Who is in the same boat? And who's in the same boat as Anita? Let us know. We're in this together.
I think it's so interesting, Mel, because, we've been doing this podcast for three years almost. And I've watched you and your life change. And I felt like you were on this really good upswing. And like then your dad died. And so it's kind of sad that I feel like your trajectory was
hijacked.
Yeah, hijacked is a good word. And you haven't had an easy time finding that same trajectory again. And I hope it doesn't take as long as it did after Scott died to find that trajectory again and start feeling like you're living again and that life is meaningful and you have things that you're excited about. And so.
Journey, stop. Oh, hold on. Let me let him out. You're annoying.
Yep.
You're leaving.
You're out.
Goodbye. I know. It's like, I mean, even if my dad had just died, that would have been hard enough. But my dad died, and the person that was my person that said that they would be there to support disappeared. Yeah. So it's like, thanks for a lot for that. And then there's more, but I don't want to go into it because who cares? We don't want to give that person any more time. So, but you know what? Now I'm just like, fine. I'm just going to keep doing extreme sports. So today I went skateboarding and I went on a ramp for the first time. Whatever. Maybe my goal in life is to be this like strange middle-aged skateboarder, roller skater.
Maybe you'll go to the Olympics.
For old people.
They do have the Senior Olympics, so maybe that. So.
I told the people at my skate lesson today, I was like, guys, I have a goal, and my one goal is that I'm going to be like 80 years old and still doing this, so I need you to help me. They're like, okay.
You're going to break your hip, man. You have to get a lot of weight-bearing exercises and calcium. We got to keep your bone density great.
Okay, help me with
all
that.
Those things.
Also, I have been working out so I can support my bones and my muscles and my ligaments in my knees. And then I'm going to go to Canada and I'm going to ski with Karen.
Speaking of Karen, thank you to David and Karen. They hosted a Zoom meeting this weekend about the challenges of dating in widowhood. We got really good feedback on that, so thank you so much. If there's another specific topic you guys would like to have discussed in a separate Zoom meeting, let us know. We can arrange that. And especially if you want to be the moderator of that particular topic, we can make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, David, and Karen for doing that. I know that there was a lot of great feedback about that and a lot of people that have really wanted to talk about that topic without impeding on maybe some people who are in just fresh grief that needed just the regular Zoom. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We love our friends and our members of the Widow Wives Club that's on Facebook. If you're not a member, go to Facebook, search for the Widow Wives Club, answer all the questions, all of them. Please read thoroughly. That's all.
If you want to keep the podcast going, consider checking out our Patreon. Patreon is a way to support content creators like podcasts. If you go to www.patreon.com, that's where you'll find it, and you can start supporting us. We have a few different tiers, and at the Widow Bestie and Up? Mm-hmm. Is that right? Yeah. And at the Widow Bestie and Up, one of the benefits you get is a shout out to let everybody know how cool you are.
So cool. And in addition to being a Widow Bestie and Up, you get ad-free episodes. So please check that out. One of the things you'll get also is a shout out, like Anita just said. So we're going to do that right now.
Sometimes we assume that unless we had a huge life insurance payout, we don't really need to know anything about investments or even finances. But guess what? A little knowledge of finances is critical for all of us. Maybe your partner was in charge of that stuff, and now you find yourself making all the decisions. Maybe you're mad about that. Maybe I am. Nicole from the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast is here to help. She tackles financial literacy by telling the stories of women and widows and finance experts, and shares the lessons they've learned as certified financial planners. Whether you know a lot and feel confident in your financial decisions or feel unsure about all of that stuff, there is more to learn. Listen and subscribe to the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast on all podcast platforms. This ad was paid for by Rockhouse Financial, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Okay, for our first dead husband, who's a secret dead husband, we're going to say, doon 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 doodle doon doon, widow, widow, baby, doon 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 doodle doon doon.
Yes. Constance Dahlbeck.
David Kelly.
Don Satterwhite.
Emily Wesenberg.
Gail Bell.
Heather Mullins.
Ivan the Misner.
Kat.
Krista Waite.
Maya Glasser.
Neil Hooper.
Sam Finlayson.
Amber Vela.
Amy Hartman Martell.
Amy Neal.
Ashley Hahn.
Barbara Schneeberger.
Brandy Younger.
Brittany Pedro.
Chris Steffen.
Cindy Wilkerson.
Danielle Catterberg.
Not a Debbie Downer.
Dennis Brazo.
Jean Marie Massey.
Jenny Taylor.
Jennifer Beal.
Jennifer Brown.
Janae Wang.
Jesse Johnson.
Carol Schultz.
Kelly Ford.
Kirsten Stromberg-Clausen.
Lara Aguirre Penner.
Lauren Old.
Lou Clausen.
Marie Hoffman, it's your episode.
Ooh, Mary Catherine Anderson.
Patricia Wiest.
Rachel Barbosa.
Sarah Morris.
Simone Fu.
Sunshine Haven.
Sylvia Shore.
Taylor Snyder.
Karen Cornejo.
Amy Burke.
Ann Drennan.
Anna Tracy.
Christina Scambato. Oops.
Audrey Henniger.
Christine Anderson.
Cindy Raynaud.
Connie Remich.
Don Barber.
Debbie Fells.
Deborah Westwood.
Diana Becker.
Emily Toledo.
Eric Vandermeulen.
Gabe Lozano.
Gia Benoit.
Gina Haas.
Ian Sini.
Ileana Bell.
My friend Jackie.
Your mom, Jane.
Another secret widow bestie.
Jennifer Davis.
Jenny Armstrong.
Jenny Barrow.
Jocelyn Milo.
Julie Stevenson.
Judy Malkin.
Karina Jacobo.
Kathy Marie.
Katie Getz.
Katie Radcliffe.
Kara Mascara.
Kevin Ferry.
Chris Morgan.
Ha ha. No.
Ha ha.
Katie.
Lindsay Kanopka.
Lori Farrington.
Marjorie Lewis.
Marianne Hammond.
Marianne McDonald.
Mary McGowan.
Megan Montague.
Melissa Bowers.
Melissa Hancock.
Missy Schubert.
Naomi Brown.
Peter Rukavina.
Rebecca Olemaker.
Becky Ziva.
Robin Flam.
Stacy Saywert.
Tammy Teravist.
Tara Wallace. Tara Wallace.
Trent Thompson.
Val Packer.
And Arizona Cardinals Wendy.
Thank you so much to everybody who supports us on Patreon. It really helps us to keep the podcast going and helps others be able to listen to the podcast who maybe aren't able to support us.
Yes. You know what we mean. Okay. Well, we hope that you guys love this episode.
Wait, tacos. Tacos.
Buy us tacos if you want. It's buymeacoffee.com/widow we do now. Whatever, nobody cares and they know that we're disasters. Right? Am I right, everyone? Hello. Now.
And if you don't want to do that, leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or something.
I just really want to talk about Auntie Marie. That's why I can't.
Okay, go. Just
everybody. The episode today is of our Auntie Marie Hoffman. She's
who
the best.
We love.
You're going to love her too. She is a treasure from the
National
universe
treasure.
and the multiverses.
Let's get to it. I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
We're coming at you, struggling and trying to figure out. Widow.
We
Do.
know.
Oh, Mel, this is an exciting
This
day.
is such a good day because we have our auntie here with us. We love her.
We hope she's okay with us calling her that. So maybe we'll ask her after if it's okay or not. But this is our Auntie Marie Hoffman. And Marie has been with us for quite a while in the Widow Wives Club and in our little posse, our group of widows. So welcome, Marie.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here with you guys.
It's been a long time coming. Are you nervous?
A little bit. A little bit. I had a lot of support from people in my world. You know, I had to ask, being pretty public, you know, I was a little worried about that. But, you know, they're like, why are you even worried? You're great. So that was,
Oh, yeah.
my CEO said that. So I'm cool.
Oh, if your CEO says that, then I'm my own CEO. So I just say whatever I want.
Yeah. It might be a make-believe CEO. I don't know. I'm not going to say.
Well, if it all turns out bad, we can put you in the widow protection program and we'll change your name and nobody will know that it's actually you. So it's all good.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Marie, where are you?
I live in Southern California, right up from Redondo Beach in the city of Torrance.
You always post pictures and videos of being on the beach. And I'm like, how do I live there too without having to pay for living there? I'm going to come just live in your basement, Marie, which you probably don't have a basement. But
Yeah, we don't have there's not a lot of basements, but I do. And I have said this in many, many times. I have 3 lovely guest rooms that are, in fact, the other day I laid down in one of them and I thought I should really just sleep in a different room. Might be nice. But yeah, you guys are, you know, anybody in the Widow Wives Club can come. I might even wait on you, that Auntie Marie part of me, you know, not for long, but at least somewhat.
Well, I really need to come because, you know, I've been screaming lately. So I might actually call you. We'll see.
Yeah, that would be neat.
I won't scream at you though.
Well, I can handle that too.
so Marie, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you like to do? What makes you tick? What do you do for your job? All of those things.
Okay, great. I actually have been, that's something I've actually thought about. One would think that would be a question, we always ask little kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I always think, oh, maybe we're just looking for ideas from them. I never really thought about what I really did. I've fallen into many, many things. So what I do, what I do for a living is I have been a real estate agent for about 32 years. But I, like any good artist, I have lots of jobs. I have a real estate team and there's about 16 people on my team. I've been a jazzercise instructor for this year, 35 years. And I have also resurrected a passion and a love that I've had most of my life, which is having my fingers in the dirt and gardening. And amazingly, I have a good friend who has a landscape business. So I'm very, very involved in working with California natives and drought tolerant plants, and excited to say I just found out yesterday that I won 3 awards for the garden that I did in my house, which is pretty exciting, from the California Landscape Association. So I tend to do things that I'm passionate with and then want to figure out how I can make it a job. I love to dance very, very, very much. And I guess the Auntie Marie part, I have 16 nieces and nephews.
Wow.
Yep. And I love animals, almost any kind. I think I would be hard pressed to find one that I wouldn't advocate for. I even like possums. I am not afraid of any bugs. I don't mind spiders. I rescue them and put them outside as long as the cats haven't eaten them halfway. And having just spent 3 weeks in Italy, a great part of it on my own, I think travel is something that I never did, but I am hungry for more of that. Is that enough?
You're just like the coolest person She's like, I have a real job, but then I do all of these things that just fulfill me and make me even cooler. Like jazzercise, I think is so funny because that just makes me think of the 80s, and it's like still around. It's like popular still for people. I think it's also making a comeback, isn't it?
Well, interestingly enough, I teach at a boutique fitness. COVID is really, besides musicians and dancers and all the artists and people in restaurants, COVID was really a challenge for people. But I'm in a little boutique fitness place, and I'm watching the younger people come in, because the music we use, we're not playing no offense, but Pointer Sisters, or which I love, or, we're playing current music. I remember one of my nieces said, I just love that new Billie Eilish song. And she's like, how do you know that? I said, well, it's a jazzercise routine, believe it or not. So I think I love music. And so I think that the word is something from the past. It's 52 years young or old or whatever. So yeah.
You are like a Renaissance woman. And from what I know about you, so was your husband.
Yes, very much so. His nickname was MacGyver.
Marie, when we first came across you, however long ago that was, before we were all family, I remembered that you would post about your husband, who is a musician. And so, of course, I was like, this is my people. Like, we have a special connection. So I remember instantly, I was like, this lady's going to be cool. Because anybody, first of all, that can put up with being with a musician is a special kind of a person. Because it's hard. Because musicians are really hyper-focused. They're married to their career and all sorts of other things. So I would love for you to tell us and the podcast world more about Dwayne. Will you do that, please?
Sure. So Dwayne, I actually met Dwayne in 1986. So a long time ago. And I was asked to step in as a dancer on a premiere kind of a play. It was a musical with dancers. And so I was called in, and he was one of the dancers. So that was one of the things that he did. And he was a musician as well, but that's when we met. So I remember one time he said he was not a person that talked about his feelings a lot. He said, music saved my life. And I think that happened in high school. Like many people, he had a great band teacher. And he also was active in the church. And that was the period of time when you had like the Misa Bossa Nova masses, and the, music was brought back into churches, or at least more contemporary. So yeah, he was a musician, and I met him. I remember having just seen the Elvis movie this weekend, which is amazing. He was doing a show called the Elvis Review and the Neil Diamond Review, and they alternated. So he sang, and he was a backup. He did mostly the backup vocals, but he played percussion. So over the 33 years we were together, I always said, well, no wonder you get hired all the time, because you sing, you play percussion. He played guitar, harmonica, and some banjo. There wasn't a musical instrument he didn't try. So yeah, that's what he did.
Neil Diamond and Elvis.
Yeah, the same guy.
Anita's eyes.
Yeah.
It's like the best. I love that whole thing. So it's like he was a triple threat,
Yeah.
Sing, play, dance, act. Whatever it is. Did you guys hit it off immediately and start dating and kind of fall into a whirlwind romance? Was it a slow burn? How did that go down?
I was actually married, and we just, it was a local production. We all the dancers, I think there was like 7 changes. And so we would pass each other. And, in that dance community, there's not a lot of privacy. You just change, you're in the same space. Same with musicians, I think. So yeah, we met each other, and then that marriage didn't work out for me. And he was on the road with a show, And when he came back, he asked me who I was studying with dance-wise. So he joined me, and yeah, I would say it was a slow burn, more as the answer to your question, because I wasn't really looking for another relationship, but we became friends. And I think the art part of my life, I was an actor as well. He really supported that. So, and then there was feelings there pretty fast. I had an apartment that I don't think I spent a night alone in. And we became a couple. And interestingly enough, we became jazzercise instructors in November of 1987 together, because that was a time when it was a very financially good for us. We taught about 16 classes a week and had a bunch of other jobs. And then 3 years later, I got my real estate license. So we just cobbled it all together. And so that's a little bit how we met. And I think getting married part was, I had been married, and maybe being a practical person, he got really sick. And I remember I had to take him to the hospital, and they said, well, who are you? And I remember thinking, there's just no status in being a girlfriend, and I had been a wife. So I said, we're getting married. So I guess I asked him to marry me.
And that because he was in the hospital?
Well, just was like, this is silly. We're sharing money. We had even bought a house together. So it made practical sense to me. So we got married in 1990.
What a great year.
Yeah.
I know.
Think of that year with fondness.
I'm thinking about my neon fanny pack I had in the 90s and man.
Yep.
Marie, I'm wondering about your life together, because Dwayne was not your typical 9 to 5 kind of like go to work, come home from work. I have a feeling that your life was a lot more interesting and probably a little bit more chaotic than, what you see in a typical suburban, family situation.
When we got together, I think it was, in looking back, I think that we didn't do a lot of like marriage counseling or dealing with stuff from the past, or what we perceive, those questions that you hear, like, well, how do you deal with money, and how do you want your family, and just stuff that makes perfect sense, right, when you're going to hire somebody. But, the getting married part, I think there was a lot of unspoken things. And we were both very independent people. And I would say I'm very goal oriented, but I'm a really hard worker. My parents are both school teachers. I wanted to be financially independent. And I think Dwayne was the eldest of 8. And I think he rebelled against a lot of conventional, like going to get a job, a regular job. He always was he showed up late, but he always showed up. I mean, honestly, there were a lot of missing conversations in it. Together, we managed to spend a lot of time together. But we definitely, I don't remember having many dinners together. It was probably several years into the relationship that I found out he didn't want to have children. And I wanted to, but not enough to insist on it. So, we really continued, and a lot of our relationship was these two very independent people who liked being together. And he subsequently went on to do a lot of backpacking, and he did a lot of teaching with the Sierra Club. He was and then he did team building. So I always said to him, how you have a gig, right? And that, Mel, but he had so much gear that of all kinds, he was a dive master. He had He was light airplane certified. He was wilderness first aid. He was constantly involved in things that he loved to do.
I have a question because you were married first to someone else.
Yes.
I was too.
Mm-hmm.
And then you met Dwayne
Mm-hmm.
and you guys got together. You're both very independent and together. And that is really similar to me and my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we were definitely not together as long as you guys were. We only had about 2 years, but it was really hard at first to figure out how to navigate two independent personalities and lifestyles. Were there parts of that you resented? Was it all working for you? Were you sad that you didn't have dinners together? Like, how did that affect you as an independent person?
I think with Dwayne and myself, we were young. And I know that people who might be hearing that and hear the age, 27, 28 might think, well, that's not very young because that's how old they are. And people get married all the time. They get married at 19 and 21 and so on. With some perspective of 40 years, or 38 years, I think that we weren't trained or we weren't questioned to ask some of those questions. You know what I mean? So at the time, I don't remember thinking, well, this is weird. I mean, I remember feeling kind of abandoned at times, and kind of like I was the one holding down the fort. But when I'm truthful about that, that's a little bit how I felt growing up. And I have lots of wonderful things to say about both my parents and certainly about Dwayne. But it was a little bit of a similar in, my dad was a little like him and my mom was a little bit like me. I always try to act to people how I want to be treated, figuring that they'll notice that, but that isn't always the way of the world. You have to actually say what you feel and say what you want and be willing to hear.
So annoying.
It's so annoying. Yeah, like I want you to do this. And it's hopefully when we say, if someone says, oh, I'm hungry for dinner, you're just hoping that they say the kind of food you want instead of going, well, I want Mexican, so I think that's a little bit of that. So yeah.
So Dwayne sounds like he kind of like was an alien. That's not a very good way to put it, but just living kind of on a different plane than a lot of people. What happened to Dwayne, if you want to tell us? So
I can tell you like what happened because it's kind of I feel like it's pretty dramatic, and because I think I was in shock for a very long time. We had been building a house. I mean, it had an outside, but we had gutted the house and we'd been building it for about 10 months and we were going to move in. And it was actually right next door to the house we lived in before for 17 years. So he put me on an airplane to go to a convention, a real estate convention. And he went and taught a jazzercise class. And then he went to a rock climbing gym where he was meeting one of our nephews, and they were going to rock climb in the gym. And I'll use the term passed out, but what happened was he died at the top of a pitch. He was at the top of the pitch, and our nephew was belaying him, which is the person on the ground. This happened. He had texted me and said that he was at the gym. And I texted him a picture of the Boston airport landing. And I said, I'm landing. He said, I just got to the gym. Have fun, with a smiley face on it. I think it had a heart. And so I got to the Airbnb and I was getting everything prepped for the rest of my team. I always like to fly in early. I was in charge of wine and chocolate, and food in the house, I guess. And I just got I got a call from my nephew. And so I didn't really know what happened because all I remember is being kind of mad at him because when my nephew said, something's wrong with Uncle Dwayne, you have to come, I thought, oh gosh, who's going to teach the classes? I'm in Texas. Subsequently, I did have an autopsy because it was completely unexpected, but his aorta tore. So I think they call it a catastrophic aortic tear. And that's what happened. So they had, paramedics and all of that stuff there, but he, just graphically, the blood comes out and it doesn't go anywhere. So there's no electrical activity in the heart. So that's what happened.
Holy cow. So he was at the top of the climbing.
Collapsed. Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what to say. Like, I'm visualizing this. And like that, I don't think I have ever heard of somebody dying like that I know of. I mean, of course it was the heart thing, but man, what a situation to be in. And you're in another state, another thing we have in common. Did you go back immediately, or were you in the middle of buying the wine and cheese and chocolates and all the fun stuff?
I've talked to so many widows, and I've been very involved in this community, and I'm willing to talk about almost anything, in my past mental illness, anything that people want to talk to me about, because that's just that's how I'm wired. So this was, and for anybody who's listening to this that has lost their spouse, even if it's a long, protracted, dying process, you just don't know what that feels like until you go through it. So I just remember the phone call, and then in about 5-10 minutes, almost his whole family arrived there, all, 40 of them. I mean, really, like nieces, nephews, mom, sisters, brothers, they all live pretty close. And I was getting phone calls because it was and I did go into shock, because people told me I called them. And so what I did actually is, I'm a connector, you have a problem, I want to fix it. So I immediately called my friend who's was an ER nurse, because I thought, well, he needs someone who's going to meet him at the ER because he's had a heart attack. That's what I assumed. But just like in the movies or on TV, I'm just hearing all this. And then my sister-in-law said, it doesn't look good. And I remember those words, it doesn't look good. And, I heard things like, well, they're working on him. And I kept going, well, is there a pulse? I've been CPR certified for 40 years. So it's like, okay. But then the minute I knew there was I thought, and I remember the thought of the conversation Dwayne and I had the week before, where we were scattering my stepfather's ashes. And weirdly enough, we had a discussion about what happens when you die. And, he was very, well, when you die, it's over. That was his position. And I also had conversations with him about, how he would want to live if he, lost his leg or something. And he would go, I wouldn't want to live without my leg. And I'd go, you'd be like the most amazing rock climber, one-legged rock climber. Come on,
He'd MacGyver it.
He'd MacGyver it. He'd be, yeah. So I just remember that I didn't want them to keep trying because it had been, too much time. Too long.
Do you feel like, Marie, that Dwayne was this dramatic personality, and so he went out in this really dramatic fashion? He couldn't have had an aortic tear when he was like walking in the grocery store. He had to be at the top of a big, tall climbing wall, and he was like, peace out.
I'm going to belay.
Yeah.
But just belay out of here,
yeah.
Snitches.
Well, we had literally a spectacular. Mel, you should see I actually had a movie made of the celebration of his life, because you imagine his whole family are musicians. We had, his full choir. There was so much music. And I remember at this celebration, 700-800 people, at the celebration, someone coming up to me and said, well, at least he died doing something he loved. And I thought it was really super inappropriate at that time. But, with some perspective, Dwayne, well, first of all, I think that if he had a choice to the way he would die, that would be it. I don't believe he was afraid of dying. And he didn't have time to be afraid in that death.
It's so interesting that you guys had that conversation just a week before also, because then you kind of are gauged into each other as to what his desires and wants are. What's your feeling about an afterlife, if you're willing to?
Well, it's funny when you ask the question about an afterlife, that discussion actually did happen because we were all there, and I would not consider I'm culturally Jewish. I actually learned a lot from that last podcast. I'm culturally Jewish. I believe that there are things that are bigger than us. And if I had to distill it down, I'm probably one of those people that thinks it's love. Mm. And there is something bigger that do I believe especially having spent 3 weeks in Italy, from a religious standpoint, I'm probably more of the feeling of what is the same in all of us? What is the basis of religion?
Pasta.
What? Yes.
Pasta.
Yes. Cheese.
Yes.
Absolutely.
There are so many facets to you and your life that we could seriously do like an 8-hour episode on you. And you've done so much, and even just in the short amount of time that we've known you. Will you remind us, what was the deal with your house and with your garden after Dwayne died?
So I will say that in looking back to the last 2 years and 10 months, I actually had a girlfriend of mine who, and I don't know if I can use this term, I think I can. She's known me since I've been 10, and she goes, and we actually, she had started surfing when she was probably 7, and we surfed together, and we surfed together for a very long time. And she said, I love to see that badass come back. And
yeah,
I think that I actually think that I've used Dwayne's death to find myself, and actually maybe not even again, to really, really, I feel like I am more strong, more beautiful, less caring about what people think. And I feel like I can do almost anything. And the things I don't want to do, I feel a lot more comfortable saying I don't want to do them. And
yes,
I love it.
Less of a people pleaser, kinder, more understanding. This sounds in a way, it sounds terrible to thank somebody for giving you that gift. But I really do think that, Dwayne, he wasn't effusive in his compliments of me. I would go, how do I look? And he'd say, you always look good. That was, or I'd say,
thanks, Dwayne.
Yeah, I would go,
that's not what I asked.
Does this make me look fat? And he would go, of course not. Of course not. What stupid, what man would say yes, right? But I think that what I did when Dwayne died is, first of all, I remember not eating very much for a very long time, and being kind of feeling like I had a fire in me that was so much energy and so much fuel that because he died on August 11th, we had moving trucks coming on August 29th. And I went through, he was 60 when he died. I went through 60 years of a man that never threw anything away and had, thousands of musical instruments. And I did it in days, and I did it with some help. but I went through his whole life, things I never knew he had. I found a letter from a high school girlfriend. It was excavation. And
wow.
I moved into this house that I live in now, which is quite a bit bigger than the house we used to live in. And then I gutted the house next door that we used to live in and remodeled that whole thing and got that up and rented. And then took over the whole Jazzercise franchise, did that. And for the grace of my real estate team, they gave me a lot of opportunity to do all that. And I moved into a property with a lot of land. And so somehow or another, that gardening, that if you build it, they will come. I did. So that's the garden thing that happened. And it's pretty phenomenal.
Marie, from our perspective, you are so kind and generous and funny and pretty and all of the good things. So I hope that you feel those things about yourself now.
Yeah.
And I think that the things that you've mentioned that have been in your past, like growing up with an alcoholic dad, having certain patterns in your childhood life and then in marriage, that stuff is hard to overcome. And it's good that these things are being talked about now in society a little bit more comfortably, because I think a lot of us, no matter the age, and maybe you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s, that childhood stuff and those patterns stick with us. And isn't it interesting that a death breaks that open so that we can learn how to live? And what interesting lesson. So you said that Dwayne's been gone about 2.5 years, almost 3, right?
Yeah. This in 2 months, well, in about 6 weeks, this August, it will be 3 years. Yeah.
And that's really not that long to come into your own. So you are on fire, woman.
Thank you.
You're an inspiration. And I want to talk about what your vision is for, and also some of the stuff that you've already hosted in your garden. What are some visions you have for that?
Well, I'm very interested and involved in being in California. And we have whatever your belief system, I'll just tell you mine is. I mean, we've got climate change. And so therefore, in California, we're in the second worst drought that we've had in the last almost 200 years. And more importantly, we need pollinators because we like food. We like food. We like, fruits and vegetables and all of that stuff.
Licorice.
Yeah, licorice, which is made out of anise or anise, depending on where you are. I mean, you do need all that stuff. It grows somewhere. So I'm very passionate about planting California natives in any state, anywhere. So I've hosted a lot, and I plan on hosting a lot more people who are sort of like-minded. We also have food inequity. So like if you live in the inner city, you don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables as much as, when you talk about the beach. So, and truly this is through my friend who has the landscape business. He's so heavily connected in that world. So I'm meeting a lot of people who are in, especially the Black and Brown community, who are really trying to make a difference. And I think that this feels really familiar to me growing up in the 70s in high school, and all those high-waisted jeans that were embroidered, we started that, darn it. So I think really giving back to the world in those areas, the environment, civil rights, hosting events in my garden. And I haven't yet, but the music is still in the back of on my list of things.
Now, you've hosted some of the Widow Wives Club regional meetups in your garden, haven't you?
Yeah, we did do that.
I'm so dang jealous that I haven't been
We
able
did do that. We did do that. I think we're due for another one. And I don't know if, I'm sure you guys have the same thing. The minute somebody's friend loses their spouse, I get a call.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I'm a connector. And so I now know I could probably build a house with all the widows and widowers that I know, mostly widows.
Wait, build like a physical house?
Well, like there's so many of them. There's so many. I mean, it's like, oh, great. It's like in the podcast, in the Facebook group when you guys like welcome, and it's like a list like this big, right? It's there's so many people, and this is a world that until you've walked through that door of losing your spouse, you don't pay attention. It's like if you've never wanted to buy a truck, you don't really notice trucks on the road. But the second you think about buying a truck, all you see are trucks. So there's lots of widows out there.
Yeah. Marie, I want to ask you a question. You can say you don't want to talk about it. You can say never mind. But I am curious about your dating life. I happen to know that you have waded a little bit back into the dating pool, and I would love to kind of hear your experiences with that and where that's taken you.
Well, first of all, I want to say dating in the context that I've from the past and how it seems to be, I never did that. So if you think about me being dating, I miss the 50s dating, which where, a young man would ask you and, drive up and meet your father or all of that stuff. I was meeting people in the 1970s, and I don't think maybe, but not in Southern California. It was like you hung out, and so I guess I dated, but I don't remember anybody ever picking me up or asking me out, and then I got married really young. I was 22 when I married my husband. And even before that, I had boyfriends, but, we just kind of fell into each other, that kind of thing. But so I didn't purposely go, I want to date, which now a lot of that is on apps, right? I do remember thinking, and I would say it was probably a good year and a half ago, I remember thinking that I missed masculinity in my life. And I remember the moment that hit me was some friends of Dwayne's had come over, and they were in his team building world, his leadership team building. So they're like outdoors guys, and I remember one of them had a shirt on, and I saw his bicep. And I remember thinking, like, it hit me. It was like a physical feeling of longing, of that. It symbolized strength. It symbolized, that I'm calling it masculinity. I don't know. And I think then I thought to myself, wow, I missed that. And I never really appreciated it that much. I lived with a man, a strong, beautiful man. So I think that kind of opened a window.
Wait, Marie, I have a question.
Yes.
I'm interrupting you. When Dwayne asked you if he looked fat, did you say, did you appreciate him? Did you say, no, you look amazing. Your bicep looks so good in that shirt.
Okay, this sounds terrible, but Dwayne was so skinny growing up. And I remember we went to his 25th high school reunion, and we walked in, and I looked fabulous and he looked fabulous. And you remember all those fat football players look terrible. I look so good. But later on, he did gain some weight. And I remember him being just kind of horrified about it. And I was like, as a person who always kind of struggled, dealt with that, I wasn't a naturally skinny person. I was like, yeah, see, now. So no, he never. Anyway, but back to the whole dating thing. So there was actually, I have a grief group that started meeting 6 months after Dwayne passed away, and we still meet once a week on Zoom. They closed us down, when the pandemic happened. There was the service director of the guy where I bought my car, he wanted to take me to dinner. I thought, isn't that nice? And then one of the men in my group said, Marie, that he's asking you out on a date. I was like, oh, no way. And then I realized he was, I could feel it, but I was a little clueless. So what I think I did make a decision about was that, number one, I wanted to spend more time with my women friends and my friendships, because I think I waited around a lot for Dwayne in a way. Like, I wanted to be available when he was available, and maybe I used it as an excuse to not do some of the things that I wanted to do. And so I thought, okay, all those friends that have always been there, I'm going to spend more time with my women friends. And then I remember thinking, if I want to meet somebody else, I'm going to tell my friends that. So kind of old school, that was the thought. I thought, social media and all the apps, I'm not criticizing it at all. And I know a lot of people have met people, but I remember thinking, I know so many people. And it's funny because I've told my business partner, I said, we could have a matchmaking service because we have 15,000 people in our database. Maybe we should just match up our clients who are looking for people. So I do remember thinking that. I remember thinking if I wanted to meet somebody, but I did. I actually met somebody, but it was somebody who was actually in my husband's family.
So what did that bring up for you? That's kind of a shocker maybe to some people and maybe to you.
Yeah, it was. I would say one of the things that I do know in my relationship with Dwayne, I felt like we were friends. I think there was an attraction really pretty early for me. I think in this case, we were friends. And I do remember thinking, if I do meet somebody and I don't want to be the person that makes the move. This is really weird. That's Dwayne's phone.
What? Stop.
We're having a haunting
Isn't
right
that
here,
crazy?
right now.
Never rings.
You guys. Oh my gosh.
That is crazy. I'm not kidding you. It's crazy.
What?
And you know what's funny about this is that this is his phone, right? And I lost my phone so much after he died that I kept it because I needed to call myself to find my phone.
Very practical.
And I don't think there hasn't been a phone call, Yeah, there's been a couple mysterious, crazy ass things that have happened with that. But
And now, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it here during the podcast recording. Dwayne's phone
rang.
Yeah.
He's probably saying, go ahead, Marie. Tell him everything.
He's like, talk about it. Yeah, let it out,
baby.
Did you okay, I have a couple questions about this. Yeah, did you have reservations about dating somebody that was related to Dwayne, first of all? And number two, how is it for him to date a widow?
He said once, you talk about Dwayne a lot, but it was done with a lot of affection, and I had this, he's a really kind person and very, very different than Dwayne, which doesn't mean that Dwayne wasn't a kind person, but they're very different. He says things, he's much more talkative, let's just say. And I thought about I think it would be better to date another widow because at least we'd understand each other. But I think he's done a pretty good job and I think he's got a pretty good self-esteem. And to be honest with you, I think that the fact that he knew Dwayne, it's these two guys that I had dated. Now I know it's a date. it was very odd to be with a man that I had just met that didn't know anything about my past or my husband. And it felt very uncomfortable because it was 33 years of my life. And so from the positive standpoint is that I feel like he knows, and he was in the sphere. He certainly knew of us. I don't remember ever having a conversation with him, with the new man I'm dating, but so and because Dwayne comes from a family that I love so much, the fact that he's part of that family is kind of, I don't have to learn another family. Kind of convenient, very biblical, right?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like the days of yore, where you would take unto him his brother's widow.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I also really, really relate with the idea of new people coming into your life who don't. I feel like people who I meet now, I'm like, you're not meeting the real me. You don't understand what I lost, where I came from, and you can't. Like, so it's actually really hard for me to incorporate new people into my life because you just can't understand them without understanding what they've gone through and the person that they had. So I think it's kind of cool, and I'm glad that you're experiencing that, and hopefully everybody is kind and nobody's weird to you about it, and that things go well. And
yeah, I think it's uncomfortable. The one thing I know that, and it took me a while because I think I saw something in my grief group where it talked about, you feel like you're in the center. You are the only person that's experiencing it. And the truth is you are the spouse. So nobody can stand in those shoes. And the immediate reaction is to go to the people that are really, really closest to you, like family and your friends, but that truly you might want to get support from the people that are in the next ring out, because the family is grieving. They lost a brother, a son. Dwayne was a bit of a movie star. He was idolized by a lot of people. He was charming and entertaining and absolutely completely unique. And he had the ability, when you were with him, to make you feel really important. And I think he had a lot of people in his world that missed him terribly, and there was some of, like, being around me was painful for them because it made them think about his loss. I do remember one thing, and I've said this before, is that the first week when he passed away or died, which I don't have any problem saying, his people stayed with me, and his sister left on the last, it was 7 days, and I just needed to be by myself. And I blurted out, "I'm so sorry it wasn't me." And then she said, "We never would have had him without you, because they weren't my family. I didn't have all the old stuff. I loved them and love them. And so I ran towards them." And I think Dwayne was like, "I want to be different. And I'm like a solo climber." So I think people in your world grieve a lot for their person. And now I have more perspective about it. It's funny though, the people that I meet now, I think they're getting a pretty cool person. And the people that have known me for a long time, I think they're seeing a little bit of a butterfly coming out of the chrysalis that has, and I guess I have to give myself kudos for that.
Yes.
But as I like to say though, there was a lot of vodka.
It's needed,
That it was a lot of that.
Marie, you are really amazing, and I'm so thankful that you spent some time with us and we got to hear a little bit more about your story and about Dwayne. And we have to agree wholeheartedly, you are, people who meet you are getting a pretty good deal. You're pretty amazing, and we're thankful that we get to count you as our friend and our fake aunt.
Mhm.
So thank you so much for joining us. I think Mel has a really important question for you.
You know this question, Marie. Are you ready? Are you even ready? It's here.
Okay, hold on.
Okay. Maybe Dwayne will want to chime in. Hey, Dwayne, call her back. 1, 2, 3. Marie, what's your favorite cheese?
Okay, I've thought about this, and having gone to Italy, it's a different cheese than it was. It's Manchego cheese.
Ah.
Which isn't an Italian cheese.
Well, then, see, I didn't even know. I don't know my cheese culture, pun intended.
Haha, that was a good one.
Yeah, I just tried it for the first time there. It was really good. Yeah, and that's why I'm a vegetarian, not vegan, because I do love some cheese.
I'm with you 100% on that. Marie, you're the best. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope everybody has found Marie to be inspiring and a lovely human being, and we're so thankful for her in our Widow Wives Club. Speaking of the Widow Wives Club, come check it out on Facebook. It's our private group. It's full of really amazing people just like Marie, of course.
Yeah.
And if you want to keep the podcast going, will you consider supporting our Patreon? It's patreon.com/WWDN.
If you'd like to buy us tacos instead, go to buymeacoffee.com/widow we do now.
And until we talk to you again, I'm Anita.
I'm Mel. And now you say your name.
Say your name, Marie.
Oh, Marie Hoffman.
And we are 2 young widows and 1 widow who is not only a butterfly herself, but is helping to keep the butterflies in the actual earth alive. The monarchs, thank you. And we are all just trying to figure out widow
We
do
now. This is my favorite thing to discuss with you.
Tell me, what is it?
One of my favorite things. I do enjoy tacos and cheese and dogs. This is about how you cannot pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a phone plan, especially when you're a widow, your person is dead, you might have kids, you might need another option, and you just want your phone to work, you want unlimited texting and service, and you want it to be like $25 a month.
It blows my mind that they have plans that start at $15 a month. That is so cheap. And the cool thing is it uses other 5G networks. And so you don't have to pay extra for that. And you still get great service.
Yep. Anita and I have traveled all over and I have used my phone. So I highly recommend it. And my mom's even on it. When my dad died, we put his phone down to the cheapest plan, which is $15 a month. And I think my mom's on the $20 a month plan, and it's so worth it. It's so much cheaper than what we were all paying before. So I highly recommend it if you're on a budget or not. Who cares? Ryan Reynolds is in charge of the company, and they send you free stickers with Ryan Reynolds temporary tattoos. It's kind of the best. So if somebody wants to sign up, what can they do, Anita?
Go to trymintmobile.com/WWDN. Seriously, you guys, such a great idea. Save yourself some money.
And if you're worried about losing data or having any changes with your phone, not going to happen. They walk you through it. Everything's fine. It's the easiest process of all time. Again, that's
trymintmobile.com/WWDN.